Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. We're excited to be kicking off this webinar series today. We'll give just about 2 minutes for everyone to kind of get settled into the room. We know we had a lot of folks pre-registered to join us today, so welcome and thank you. We hope you're having a great summer. And we'll just give it about 2 minutes for folks to get in, and then we'll jump right in. All right, welcome to those that just joined us. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and bring our panelists front and center for today. So want to just welcome everybody to this event. And we'll just jump right in. So we have lots of people on today. So for those of you I haven't met virtually before, my name is Kate Howell. I'm the Director of Workforce Partnerships for Educate Maine, and I'm thrilled to be leading this summer programming along with our fantastic Maine Career Catalyst team. I look forward to meeting many of you in person along throughout the summer at lots of our events. Just a few reminders for today that unlike regular Zoom, you don't have to worry about cameras or being muted. So if you're eating lunch, it is a lunch and learn, that's fine. But we do want to hear from you and have interactions in the chat and the Q&A. So to kick things off and just get a sense of who's on our call today, if you want to just add into the chat the company where you're working this summer and where you're working from today. So we can see kind of how far reaching we are and what areas of Maine and maybe across the country we're reaching. If you have questions for our panelists, drop them into the Q&A box, which you can do with your name or anonymously if you choose. And you also have the option to upvote other people's questions. So if you like their question or you're thinking of something similar, give it a click, and that will help us see where we should take today's conversation. And we'll work through the planned questions and then ensure that we leave time for all of your questions at the end. We will wrap up right at 1:30. So we know that we're moving quickly, but I do want to say, don't forget about some upcoming events that we have. Next week, we have our outdoor adventure event. I think John's going to drop the RSVP link into the chat so you can put your name into the lottery if you're interested. And that's taking place up in the Freeport area or Brunswick area on Friday the 7th. It's going to be great. And then also, if you identify as a person of color and haven't RSVP'd to tomorrow's Students and Professionals of Color Networking Night, it's going to be at the Southern Maine Community College campus, and that will be something you don't want to miss. So RSVP to that as well. With that, I'd officially like to welcome our panelists today. I'm happy to be moderating this discussion on community engagement and social responsibility. We're going to talk to folks from both large and small organizations, and I personally have a passion for this topic, not just as a nonprofit leader, but also as I think about my career path and some of the for-profit organizations I've worked for, where I felt the most fulfilled. This has been something that I look for in places I work, and I know our panelists have a lot to share about their own companies and careers, so we're just gonna jump right in. So thank you to all of you for joining us this afternoon. And just to jump in, we'll kind of just start with a quick around the room with just a name, your company, and then just tell us a little bit about yourself and your current role in organization. So I'm gonna throw it to Kate at IDEXX first.
Great. Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here today. I love seeing all these comments come in and seeing interns from all over Maine. It's very exciting and recognize many of those companies. So welcome. I work with IDEXX. I'm the manager of global community impact at IDEXX. In case you're not familiar, IDEXX Laboratories actually celebrates its 40th anniversary this year. And it started 40 years ago with 5 employees on Portland's waterfront. And now our worldwide headquarters is still in Maine, but we employ nearly 11,000 employees on 6 continents. And we offer veterinary solutions and products and software solutions to primarily veterinary customers in 175 countries. So IDEXX supports animal health through innovation, diagnostic, and software solutions for companion animals, livestock. We actually have a small water division that provides tests and supplies that services more than 2.5 billion people across 100 countries. We have a small Opti medical division, which is human medicine focused, and that actually manufactures and designs equipment that's used in ERs and intensive care units across the globe. So IDEXX is a very research and development driven and very purposeful company. My role at IDEXX is within global corporate responsibility, and I really focus on the S in ESG, if you're familiar with that. So that includes managing the IDEXX Foundation and our corporate responsibility community initiatives, which typically involves working with nonprofits across the globe. I manage those relationships, track the initiatives, the outcomes, our communication opportunities, as well as really exploring ways to engage and amplify the impacts with our leaders and employees. I manage a global therapy dog program at IDEXX, which makes perfect sense considering we are animal health focused, with kind of like 2 components, one of which is bringing therapy dogs on site in locations across the globe, while also recruiting IDEXX employees to become certified as therapy dog teams so that they can go out and amplify those impacts in our communities. I work with our employees at resource groups. I manage our disaster and emergency relief campaigns, as well as our fall giving campaign and a few other things. So that's a little bit about me. I'm really excited to be here today.
Great. Thank you, Kate. I'm confident there's lots of questions running through people's minds. You have wear many hats over there. So I'm going to throw it to Marie at Unum next to give a brief intro.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Marie McGehee, and I work for Unum and also for Colonial Life, which is a subsidiary company of Unum. I'm based in Columbia, South Carolina. Unum is headquartered out of Chattanooga, Tennessee. We have home office sites in Portland, Maine, as I mentioned, in Columbia, and also in Louisiana in Baton Rouge. We are also located in Poland, Ireland, and the UK, and collectively there are about 10,000 employees across our footprint. Unum is a large disability insurance carrier. We offer financial protection services to employees through their employer. And Colonial Life is a voluntary insurance benefits carrier. We offer dental, vision, life, disability, a wide range of products on the supplemental insurance side. So it's great to speak with you today. My role with the company is the Director of Corporate Social Responsibility. I'm part of a business area that we call People and Communications. It sits within the HR function of the company on the corporate side. And I've been with the company nearly 25 years and primarily in this world of work for social responsibility. I know we'll dive deeper into that as we begin to go through the Q&A, but it's exciting work and just so happy to have you all be a part of today's discussion.
Awesome. So excited to introduce Libby Davis. Next, works for a little bit smaller of a company, but with big social impact and community development. So Libby, take it away.
Thank you so much, Kate. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. And unlike the 2 previous chairs, yeah, my company is very small. It's about 3 employees. And yeah, my name is Libby Davis. I'm the founder, owner, operator of Lady Shuckers mobile raw bar and event company that's based out of Portland, Maine. And yeah, basically we're a food truck and a catering company that sources from a network of women-owned oyster farms here in the state and takes them to market through a variety of different public and private events, and just kind of supports a mission of diversity and inclusion for the aquaculture industry. The business is very new. We started it just working on sailboats in 2021. And so this is the second full year of doing the business. And yeah, basically we're just filling a gap in the to market supply chain. And so by doing mobile events and, working with different aligned businesses and organizations through corporate events and different catering events, we're able to spread the mission of sustainable aquaculture to wider audiences and just educate people about the awesome benefits about the industry. I got started working in the oyster industry about 6 years ago. I was managing a raw bar in Portland after coming back from a couple years working abroad, where I was serving in the Peace Corps, working with farmers and helping get their products into different markets and things of that nature. And I got involved in the oyster industry, and I just kind of fell in love with the sustainability aspect of the company. I loved the tight-knit community that we have here in Maine. I'm from Maine originally, and it's just a real honor to be able to share the story of Maine oysters with the world, and continue just doing awesome events. So happy to talk with you guys about what it's like to be a entrepreneur, a small business owner, and all the likes. Thank you.
Great. So Libby, I'm going to stay with you as we kind of jump into our first question about how each of your companies kind of actively engages in the community or elevates different populations. And so wanted to give you an opportunity to think about, to kind of share kind of what got you into the idea of leading Shuckers and like working with women-owned businesses, and kind of how do you do that? How do you source that? And like, how did that come to fruition for you? And then we'll kind of move over to Kate and Marie after and kind of talk about, how the company, each of their companies engage in those areas too.
Yeah, sure. So I think where I'll start is just, where I was working in a raw bar and in a restaurant during the time of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the restaurants closed. Obviously, as I was working in this restaurant, there was a lot of farmers that I met in this area, and became really good friends with, and learned about their stories and learned about the different nuances of the products, and how the ecology of where they're grown takes on different flavor profiles, and just saw people's eyes light up when they would learn about the products and how they have both very good human and environmental health benefits for our world. And so when the doors closed to different restaurants, that was a main revenue stream for farmers. And I thought to myself, geez, God forbid anything ever like this happens again. We need to establish some more creative avenues to connect the supply and demand, because this product is world class and it's just too amazing, to not share with the world, and to get more people involved in the industry, as we need to think about transitioning to more sustainable food systems and things of that nature, away from land-based agriculture and into more sustainable forms of farming and protein. And so aquaculture is a great way to do that. So that was kind of the initial thought there. And then, on a global scale, the seafood and fishing industry still is a pretty cis white male dominated industry. I think in Maine, we've definitely seen a lot of growth there, especially in oyster farming. And at present, there's about 23, I believe, women-owned oyster farms in the state. And so we source from 15 of them routinely for our events all up and down the coast, and just try to offer our customers, a variety of different farms. And the whole mission was to be inclusive, right? So I get a lot of people saying, well, geez, you don't source from men, like, that's kind of rude, that's kind of sexist, but it's really not about that. It's more about celebrating underrepresented groups in the industry and in industries as a whole, and trying to create community around that. And that goes for people of color, that goes for the LGBTQ community, that goes for people with disabilities, and just trying to create representation. I think that was one thing that I really needed in order to get involved in the industry. When I studied biology, and I didn't always know I wanted to go into oyster aquaculture, but I met these amazing role models, most of who were cis white males. But then there was a select few couple of women that would come in their boots with these bags of beautiful oysters. And I said, wow, like I want to be like just like them. And so it really helped to have them as role models and expanders to say, well, hey, if they can do it, I can do it too. So I'm repping for, as a woman, I'm repping as a person in the LGBTQ community. And I just hope that, other people, whoever the brand is touching, if they wanted to get involved, they would be able to look at the brand, as an inspiration for them to say that they could do it too, or reach out for support in any way.
Awesome. Thanks, Libby. Appreciate all of that context. Want to hand it back over to Marie to talk a little bit about Unum and some of the ways that you've worked to kind of engage the community and lift up diverse populations. I know that Unum is highly involved in a lot of different areas. So maybe you can pick a couple. I'm sure that it's a list as long as Kate's too, but pick a couple that kind of would highlight for students some of the things that you all focus on.
Sure, thank you. So we have what we call a portfolio of investment strategies that really drives our community engagement and support. And it really aligns to Unum's overall mission of helping the working world thrive. So our mission through corporate social responsibility is to give individuals and families, no matter their race, demographic, or socioeconomic status, what they need to thrive. And we do that through really intentional ways. And we align what we do to who we are as a company, to our culture, to our brand, all for greater societal impact. So we have 4 areas of focus. One of them is workforce development. So that's our education focus. We invest in programs and services that primarily support students and educators. For the students, they might be receiving services through a nonprofit organization, or it could be through their school institution, where we're aligning, with different services that will equip them to come into the workforce. Maybe it's tools and resources that they might need just to excel in the classroom. And so, the workforce development piece within education is really what we're all about. We have healthier communities, which focuses on mental and physical health services and initiatives to those who really are at a disproportionate need for those services. So we support organizations that really are equipping individuals and families with basic healthcare needs and mental health care services. A third area of our focus is what we call ready response. And this is our approach to equipping communities and our own employees with resources that they need to thrive following a disaster. That disaster might be a weather related event, such as a hurricane or tornado. It could be a personal disaster, such as a house fire. But through ready response, we're helping, again, individuals and organizations be able to come back from disaster and move forward with some financial resources. And then last but not least, we have what we call our inclusive impact work. So early on in 2020, Unum took a firm stand, and we weren't just speaking the talk, we were walking it, and we created a social justice fund. From June of 2020 through the end of that year, our investment support, which was a combination of corporate resources, financial resources into the community, paired with employee resources, it was all at that time based on equipping organizations and people around racial issues. But today we've expanded that program, and in 2021, it became more broad, and we created the program to really focus on creating stronger, more equitable communities by working with organizations that not only address racism, but discrimination and bias across different groups. And so we're really proud of that work. More than $1 million has been channeled into Unum communities through that inclusive impact work.
Great. Thank you.
You're
So Kate,
welcome.
I'll hand it over to you to share a little bit about how IDEXX is lifting up different communities. I know that you mentioned a few different things, and maybe we can pick a couple to kind of expand upon and share a little bit more. And then we'll kind of dig a little bit more into some of the things that are maybe more personal to all of you.
That sounds great. So anyone can actually look at IDEXX's public-facing commitments and what our goals align with. So we align very specifically with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, of which there are 17 very important goals. We've identified 10 that we feel we can most uniquely impact. So some of those include number 4, which is quality education. Number 5 is a commitment to gender equity. Number 6, clean water and sanitation. Sorry. Number 8, decent work and economic growth. And number 10, reduced inequalities. There are more, but essentially so many of those align, really support and bolster our initiatives relative to diversity, equity, and inclusion. Externally, but also internally within IDEXX. We do this with internal programs. We do it with our employee-led communities, 3 of which come to mind right now. One is called Shades of IDEXX, and that is people representing every color, across all of IDEXX. Another is called Together, HER is capitalized, and that is a group of employees that are really focused on elevating and advocating for women and individuals who identify as female throughout all of IDEXX globally. And then we have PrideX, which is very focused on our LGBTQ plus community and elevating them and supporting them and ensuring that we align with community initiatives to sort of, again, like bolster our engagement in our community and support the communities as a whole and broadly. Another way that we really support our communities is through, we call it VTO days or give days. So IDEXX gives every full-time and or part-time employee working 60 hours or more every 2 weeks, 2 days of paid volunteer time off each year. And so we encourage our employees to go out and really give back in our communities. And we work, I have a counterpart at IDEXX who's focused on the volunteer initiatives. And so we work collectively with our employee-led resource groups to engage with and sponsor deeply with some of our community partners. Also, the IDEXX Foundation, one of our pillars, and you can also Google this, Google can be our friend. One of the pillars of the IDEXX Foundation is creating opportunities for the diverse leaders of tomorrow. So that includes advancing DEI in veterinary and STEM professions by providing access to opportunities for learners of all ages and supporting well-being. So we have some amazing initiatives that we're focused on relative to that. One of which is specific to diversity in the veterinary professions, because that is actually very low. And then the second is well-being specific to veterinary professions as well. I didn't know this before I worked for IDEXX, but mental health is a challenge for many veterinarians, right? Their days are just like up and down all day long, from greeting a new puppy and giving them, a first-time visit well-being check to having to potentially euthanize a pet. And it puts a huge strain on our veterinarians. So we are, the IDEXX Foundation and IDEXX as a whole is very supportive of initiatives that are bringing new tools into the well-being space for veterinarians, so that when they graduate from school, or even veterinary nurses and vet techs, and go into that clinical environment, they have some of the tools that they need to understand kind of like what's coming and how to manage that. So we're funding 3 broad initiatives in Germany, the UK, and the US right now with some research universities. So there's so much more. I love IDEXX and everything that we do, but that's like a little snippet. So feel free to reach out at any time with more questions.
Yeah, so kind of going off that a little bit, right? So I'm sure there's lots of students on the call right now that are like, this is so interesting. I didn't even know that I wanted to make sure that I could, be involved with a company that does this kind of work, or this is something that's really interesting to me. So Kate, when you were looking at companies, and from our conversation before, I know that you didn't necessarily come from exactly a job that looked like this into this one. So when you were looking for jobs and made the decision to move to IDEXX, was their community involvement and kind of outreach part of what you were looking for? To kind of stumble upon it? Kind of what was that like for you?
So not to bring a sad story to the table, but we have a golden doodle that we lost because of kidney disease, and IDEXX's R&D team created the first diagnostic test to help predict kidney disease in pets well in advance. And so, not in time for our dog Kenobi, but compelling enough for me that I know I wanted to be part of IDEXX. Like I wanted to be a part of a company that's innovating R&D for pets and how important they are to all of us. So that's really what initially sort of brought me to the table. But then when I interviewed with them and I realized that, as Marie said earlier, like when you find a company that really walks the talk, right? They're not just saying we do these things, but they really do these things, from employee engagement to caring about the culture and what's important to employees, giving them a voice, supporting mental health and well-being and professional development. Like the sky is the limit at IDEXX. You can do almost anything. I've gone from project management to marketing to corporate responsibility, now community impact. It's an amazing environment in which to learn and grow. So those were all key components for me. I just knew that I needed to have that opportunity to continue growing and developing and, innovating, and IDEXX provides that.
Great. So Marie, I know you've been at Unum a bit longer. So as you think about your career path, was it always in this field? Did you come from another area of Unum? How did you get involved in being able to utilize the resources of a big company like Unum to kind of help do the good?
Thanks, Kate. So no, when I came to Unum nearly 25 years ago, I really didn't know anything about what corporate social responsibility meant. I just started volunteering. I came into the company on the business side of the house, so doing accounting, very different from the work I do today, although there is some, crossover with the financial piece of that. But I just started volunteering with different company initiatives. And a couple of years into, my employment with the company, I felt like I had a calling, quite frankly. I just said to myself one day, something spoke to me, and I felt like this is the work for me. Like this is where I'm supposed to be. And it wasn't long after that, I had taken a different role with the company. I moved to the marketing team, and I started being offered special assignments. And those special assignments were working with community partners, and particularly with one of the contracts that we had through the company into the community. And, that fell on my desk, and I just took it on. And the more I learned, the more I wanted to do. And so an opportunity came open on, at the time it was called Community Relations Team. And I applied for it, and I've been doing that type of work ever since. Now my role has expanded and changed over time, but I just felt a calling again to be part of social responsibility. And, back to your original question, the way I got engaged was by just stepping into it as a volunteer and leading special events at my company, and then, just going forward from there.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great. So Libby, I know you said before you majored in biology, did not like go into the world after graduation from college and say like, oh, I'm gonna run an oyster event company. So can you talk a little bit about kind of, I know you started to talk a little bit about it, but how you kind of ended up in this space, and why it was so important to you?
Yeah, definitely. So I went to a small environmental liberal arts school in Vermont, and yeah, after I graduated, just kind of had no idea what I was going to do. Knew I needed a break from school, so I applied and got into the United States Peace Corps as an agriculture and food security volunteer, where I went abroad to live in Madagascar for 3 years, actually. And during that time, it was a program that was a business related, but in a country such as Madagascar and a lot of developing countries, all the business that was being done there was basically agribusiness. So they were needing to get the things that they grew and farmed into different markets so that they could get income for their families. So I did a lot of small vegetable gardening programs. I introduced a really successful rabbit farming program, both for IGA as well as, in improving people's nutrition and wellness. And I just saw a need to help farmers, right? Because they're the ones that are out there growing the stuff, doing the work, they're exhausted, and then they need help marketing their product, right? How do you get them into wider audiences so that they can reach more and more people? And kind of develop that to market supply chain. So when I came back from that experience, it was very transformative. And as I said, I'm a Mainer, and came back and just kind of had no idea what I was going to do. I had never worked in a restaurant before. I had been a vegetarian for 7 years. I had never even tried an oyster, honestly. But I'm a big believer in manifestation and energetics. And I was working carpentry for my father. And I met this guy, John Harrigal, who's the owner of Maine Oyster Company on Portland Street in West Bayside. And yeah, he was just opening. He was an oyster farmer, a small farm up in Phippsburg, Maine, and just needed help. And so it was him and I just kind of at the helm for 2.5 years running the restaurant. And I got to make so many friends, I think, in that location. And it was in 2018, it was just kind of starting to boom, the oysters. People were talking a lot about it. And I worked on a fuel efficient cook stove project in Madagascar as well. And one of the things I loved about oyster aquaculture and the fuel efficient cook stove stuff was that they both had these underlying social values of supporting environmental and human health. So oysters, they're filter feeders, they clean our waters, and they're also low in fat, high in protein, they're high in a lot of micronutrients, and they're one of the most zinc dense foods on the planet, which is really good for your immune system. And the way John and I work together, I just completely fell in love with this story. And after trying many oysters, definitely backed the flavor profile of them and saw the way that people were intrigued by not just the growing process, but the nuances of the flavors and how, based on what areas of the bay they were grown in, whether they were river oysters or what kind of culture they used to farm them, that all influenced the flavor profile. And so much like, you think of wine sommeliers, the soil that the grapes are grown in used to make the wine, that all influences the body of wine. And so in wine, it's called terroir, and in oyster farming, it's called merroir. And it's literally the little lifeblood seawater in the little vacuum sealed shell container that keeps the oyster alive. And I saw that people, they just wanted to learn more about it. They wanted to learn how to shuck oysters too. And like I said, after the pandemic, I just wanted to support my friends for the most part. There was a lot of amazing women in the industry that I met that were role models and inspiring to me. And one of our goals of Lady Shuckers is to not just increase visibility, but to increase revenue for women-owned aquaculture products too. So by having this to market model and this, specialty service where we go to people's houses or weddings or corporate events or go around with the food truck, we're not only able to tell the story, but we're also, by supporting Lady Shuckers, you're supporting, kind of a vertically integrated network of women-owned aquaculture businesses in Maine.
Awesome. Thank you. So an important question. So as I listen to all three of you as we're getting started in this conversation, all coming with different backgrounds, different experiences, all different things that got you here, and have obviously helped develop and grow each of your careers. A lot of students are on this call today thinking about what's next. How do they get in at a company like yours and that kind of thing? So, and I know each one of you offers internships, so I'll throw that out there. So if someone's interested in interning at any of these places, including with Libby, we can help make that happen in future years. But when you think about interns who may be doing volunteer or doing community engagement, whether it's through their organization or on the side, kind of how do you see them being able to capitalize on some of that and relate it to marketable skills that they can talk about in interviews, that they can kind of showcase to try to get positions that they might be applying for. And Kate, I'll start with you.
Yeah, so I mean, I am an eternal optimist, and so that can be a good thing, and it can sometimes not be a good thing. But I just have a very strong belief, right, that whatever you want to do, you really can do it in life. I definitely encourage everyone on this call today to just lean in, like lean into what's important to you, lean into what you feel you're truly skilled at, and just listen along the way. I mean, where I started in my career, to be honest, after college, I went into a temp agency. I wanted to get to know companies in Greater Portland, and I worked at all of the large major companies, and I started my career at Hannaford, which, Delhaize, and, I started in government relations, writing, training trainers, moved into managing all the installations for new supermarkets from, vendors on, literally supporting them through the week of being live. Then I moved into corporate real estate for them and negotiating real estate deals, some of them large deals. And then we moved to Vermont. My husband got a job with Burton Snowboards. And so I went to work as a marketing director, and then moved to Southern Connecticut, where I ran a marketing agency. Then we came back to Maine, and I wanted to get back into the corporate environment. I chose IDEXX for the reasons I shared before. But all of the skills that you have, whether it's through volunteering, whether it's through part-time work, whether it's through an internship, all of those skills can include leadership if you're leading a project, right? Problem solving, teamwork, communication, project management, which I highly, highly recommend. Maybe a certification in that, because when we were in Southern Connecticut, the world's largest hedge fund was hiring people primarily with project management experience or certifications, because the skill set that you bring is just so broad, I think, in that. And then be able to provide context to the experience that you have and the passions that you have. And then I love the STAR method. I don't know if you're familiar with it or not, but it's you use your situation, the task, the action you took, and the result, right? So if you can think of that, really short acronym, it helps to provide a really clear and structured way to showcase your particular skill set. And then, volunteering is an amazing way to connect with people and leaders throughout the community. And don't hesitate to ask for that opportunity to have an informational interview or whatever it might be. Reach out to your network. In my experience, a lot of people are good people and really willing to help and support however they can. So sometimes it's hard to ask, but don't be afraid to ask.
Marie, how about you?
That was great. So I don't have a whole lot to add to what Kate said. I mean, I would echo everything she said. The one thing I would add is, by volunteering, and we encourage our own employees, to step up into like a volunteer leadership role with something that maybe the CSR, corporate social responsibility team, is putting together. But just step into that opportunity, because whether you're helping to plan a special event, or maybe you are the volunteer project manager of an experience, you are gaining so many new skills. And I mean, the professional development that comes from that, again, back to everything Kate said, whether it's whether it's networking or just a new awareness of what maybe the community needs are, you're enhancing maybe your empathy towards others in very special ways. You're gaining new perspectives. There's no wrong. Nothing you cannot go wrong in getting involved as a volunteer to impact community. So I would just say go do it, and let us know how we can help.
Awesome, thank you. So Libby, I'm going to change it up a little bit for you and ask in what ways your volunteerism and kind of community engagement, maybe through the Peace Corps, has helped you grow personally and professionally, and how it may have impacted the growth of Lady Shuckers. And we had a question kind of related to this in the Q&A that asked about the advantage of immersing yourself in a volunteer program directly after graduating from college. So I don't know if you want to add a little bit more to that as related to kind of what it was like for you in Peace Corps and how that might have jump-started your career in certain ways.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I definitely encourage everybody at whatever stage they are, preferably after school is what I would recommend, but to do some travel, right? To get out of the community you were born in, the people you were raised around, and just travel and try something new because you meet different people from different cultures who have different experiences. And for me, and a core value of what we have at the company, it's like I want people with a diverse experiences background because they're going to help make me a better business owner by having experienced different things than me, and they're going to help us make more resilient as a company by having different strengths that maybe I don't have. And I think, for me in the Peace Corps, I didn't, I studied biology and then agriculture. They were kind of similar, but I discovered a lot more about myself in an industry, putting myself in an industry that I didn't really mean to be in, and I think just everybody should get out there and volunteer. I always ask, always ask. I have hired 2 people this year, which is very exciting. But one of my core questions that I asked all my candidates was to tell me something about yourself that isn't on your resume, right? Because I can't learn everything about a candidate from just what's down on paper. And the question, I think I like to make it purposely vague because it allows whoever might be on my team to decide whether they want to share something job related or not. Maybe it's volunteer work, maybe it's traveling, maybe it's another defining experience in their life. And from what they share, I think it can tell me as an owner a lot about what they can contribute to the company culture, and how those backgrounds would complement what we're doing here. So it takes a little bit of time, I think, to get clear on what's important to you and to find your niche. For me, I wasn't sure what that was for a while. I really liked science. I've always really liked people. And then it was kind of just my own kind of story that evolved, as I grew and learned more about myself, that eventually kind of became this like mission cornerstone of the company to support people from different backgrounds and just celebrate them, and you should celebrate yourself too, whether it's, through attending networking things or, developing your LinkedIn or, whatever it is, celebrate yourself, market yourself through social media. That's a large way that the company has helped get visibility, I think, in a quick time. Partnerships with bigger brands that you align with in your mission. Go out there and celebrate what you're doing because it will help the people who are meant for you find you. And that's the best advice I could give.
That's great. Thank you. We all, I mean, all this has been great conversation. We know it's the right thing to do. We know that it feels good. We know that these are the things that we want to do personally, but I also want to dig into like, why do companies care beyond that? Like, is there a benefit, to the organization on a business level? So Libby, I'll start with you and just say, like, have you seen an impact like in your marketability because you have a focus? Has it being defined in that way? Has it helped you grow your business? Is there an aspect of it that really is business related as well?
Absolutely. And I think that realization came after the fact. It wasn't the reason why I did it at all. I mean, being honest, I didn't do it to make money. I did it because I believed in it and because it was me and it was what I loved and what I wanted to do with my life. And it's still crazy to me that, I'm on a panel right now with, amazing people from Unum and IDEXX right now, and it's who have tens of thousands of employees. And it's just a huge honor that people have been getting behind the social mission, and they see the sustainability aspect of the company. And in terms of the private events and the catering goes, that have helped make the company a little bit more liquid in terms of getting it to be a level of profitability, which it takes a little bit of time as a startup and a new venture. I have a lot of people inquire specifically for those reasons, that they they want to support a company that has a social mission like this. And I think we will get the booking as opposed to maybe other companies that offer the same exact services at the same exact pricing, but we will get, you know, the booking because people vote with their dollar. You know, they want to support companies that have you know, things that align with their passions and their mission. So yeah, the same goes for the LGBTQIA community. I think a lot of I definitely have folks that are you know, part of that community that understand the company is you know, involved in that sphere, and they want to have vendors that they feel safe around at those events and to support them. So yeah, it's really been wonderful. But I did not do it because to make money or for a good marketing ploy. I did it because it was me, and because I wanted to be able to tell the story of yeah, my friends out on the water, and be able to call them up and say, hey, I need 300 on the double, and you know, to put the oysters in the cooler, the fun little yeah, methods there, and yeah, just continue to share the story of Maine oysters with the world.
Great. So Kate, I'm going to throw the same question to you, and kind of how does engaging in community development benefit companies, benefit IDEXX?
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge boost to employee engagement and morale. There's no doubt about that. And I think that companies realize more and more just how important that is. And, you know, Libby gave a great example. It doesn't matter how large or small your company is, right? Those same core values and those same core strategies or approaches can make a huge difference. It does make a difference, I think, also with brand reputation. Also, speaking to what Libby just said, when you engage with the community, it enhances the company's public image, but it also positions us as being socially responsible, right? It demonstrates that we do live out our purpose. It helps with talent attraction and attrition, for sure. A lot of people will go and read our corporate responsibility report, which just demonstrates over and over again all the things that we do throughout the year to demonstrate our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, to accessible care, you know, for pet owners and for pets all across the globe, for so many different things that IDEXX is committed to really living out our purpose in every community where we live and work. So, and then skill development. There's so many skills that you can gain as a person and as an employee while you're out there volunteering and putting on a different hat and seeing things from a different perspective. It's so valuable. It's hard to really articulate how valuable it is, but it is, yeah, it's very important.
Great. Thank you. So I'm seeing some really great questions coming in on our Q&A. So I'm going to jump to a couple of those. So one of them I think is really great. So in terms of engaging with communities as a business or an organization, what are good strategies to reach individuals who are not easily accessible through social media or similar channels? I think as we, you know, as a world think about engaging with people, our default is often social media. So wanted to throw it out to you all to say, how is it that you engage people or learn about maybe new organizations that you could be involved in, not just maybe who you're trying to attract or showcase yourself to, but also, you know, attract new partners and things like that. I don't know if any of you have some thoughts on that.
I can jump in just really quickly. I mean,
Sure.
obviously we tap into our employee-led communities, and they're very diverse, and they're all across the globe, and they're all working with different organizations. So that is certainly, you know, one aspect of it. But I think too, it is about like living your purpose, which is what we talked about. So right now at IDEXX, we are trying to galvanize WEX and a number of different companies in our area to help with food insecurity. So we identified 3 organizations that are specifically supporting diverse populations in all of Greater Portland, and the need in particular for school children to go home and know that they have a meal and that they don't have to wait, you know, from school to being back at school the next day. So sometimes it's just about like being in that moment, seeing where the need is, and then just reaching out, whether it's to a colleague in a different company or colleagues within your own, to say, how do we solve this? Like, let's find a solution and let's change this.
Great.
Grassroots.
Yeah, grassroots. I'll just jump in here quickly. Yeah, showing up is half the battle, you know. So whatever it is that you want to do and focus on, you know, show up for it. Number one, I think attending, you know, some of these networking sessions and webinar chats sponsored by Workforce Development institutes like Educate Maine, getting involved, if you're interested in entrepreneurship, the SBDC, small business development, getting involved in SCORE. These are free resources that I personally just fought for for the first year, because I thought I had to do it all on my own, and now that, we're cruising into the second year, it's like these resources are here and there's mentors. You don't have to recreate the wheel a lot of times. A lot of people have done this before, even if it is just showing up and you don't know how to do that. So you can reach out, to these types of institutions who can, support you and help you take the first step so that you can continue doing the next right thing and the next right thing. And it's just one day at a time. Sometimes when we look at like the full span of it and how do I grow this to this, it can be very daunting. But if you just focus on doing the next right thing today and then tomorrow doing the next right thing, over time, you'll get to where you want to be.
Great, thank you. So lots of questions coming in as related to kind of finding fit and kind of how do we advocate for our passions and things like that. So I'm gonna throw it to Marie to start, but kind of thinking about like what advice do you have for current interns or soon to be graduates, kind of to think about like what company is the right fit, like how do you know, and then also if you think you're in the right place or you're headed to the right place, do you have any advice for those folks about advocating for their passions? How do they walk into a place like Unum and say, this is what I think we should be working on, and are there avenues for things like that in bigger companies?
Yeah, sure. So discovering if the company that you're thinking about working with is the right fit. If you don't know that organization, do some research on the company and discover what their values are. What's important to them. What does their culture look like and feel like? And if you happen to know an employee that works for that company, speak with them and hear what they say. I think I saw a question in the chat. How do you know if a company's being sincere and not just posturing? Talk to the employees. You can read about who they say they are, in their ESG report. All the large companies produce one. But I think you've really got to get at the heart of the culture, and that's immersing yourself in it and making sure, again, that you align with the company's values before you step into it. I always, when I speak to people who are thinking about, applying for a job for a new company, I say, you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. So just keep that in mind as you're out there looking for your next career, because you want it to be a good fit when you step into that company. As far as when you get there, how do you, leverage your voice? First of all, you have to speak up because that's the only way to get the conversation going, to explore what's currently being done around your passions or your areas of interest, and what the possibilities are that lie ahead. At Unum, we leverage the employee voice primarily through what we call employee networks. These groups are, you opt in, it's voluntary. But we have 5 different employee network groups that are really centered around belonging and shared perspective. They help advance our culture of who we want to be as a company, but they give employees that space to focus on issues that are important to them. And by aligning to one of these employee networks, we use that network when we're thinking about company decisions about our I&D strategy, decisions about issues in this political climate that we're currently in. We're hearing the employee voice, and these networks are so critical, to the company and helping decide how we move forward, identifying solutions, and that's external as well as internal. Are there workforce engagement barriers that exist? But the 5 networks, just for your awareness, are multicultural, LGBTQ+, gender equality, disabilities, and then military and veterans. So those are the 5 different communities, and you can be a part of all of them. You can be an ally within the employee networks. So it's really, and it's an important space. It's a great space for people to align, have their voice heard, and not just heard, but acted upon. Now I'll turn it back to you, Kate.
No, great, thank you. Yeah, so Kate, wanted to ask you the same question, and I'll also just kind of jump in here too with kind of how do you know if someone's not just like talking the talk? And I heard a great example recently on a different webinar, on a different panel, that was, you know, if you ask a question, or if you're doing research, and I'm gonna boost up IDEXX here for a second. We heard you talking about PrideX, right? So if you ask a question like LGBTQ plus community is really important to you, and you look into it, and the only thing that they're doing, or the only thing on Instagram is, you know, June 1st, like happy Pride Month, like that might tell you something, right? Wherein if you see something embedded in other aspects of what they're doing, or other events that they're hosting that are also inclusive, or also involve that community, or also talking about Pride Acts in, you know, January, then you know that it's embedded into the work that they do year round. And that's not the only thing you can look at, but I thought it was really telling to think about, you know, if you're flipping through an Instagram, what is it that you're seeing, right? Like companies put a lot of stuff out there, but if you really look at like what the material is throughout the year, or what you're seeing, like what does that really show you? You know, is it because it's a certain month or a day or a holiday, or like, is it really embedded into the work that they're doing? So excited to hear that particular part of IDEXX when you were talking about it as like an example in my mind. But wanted to ask you, Kate, if you had anything else as we wrap up.
Yeah, so I mean, just well said, Marie and Kate both. I mean, Google is my friend, and Google can be your friend too. And I cannot overstate or understate that. There's so much that you can learn just by searching, whether it's the corporate responsibility report, whether it's the social channels and what's happening. But also, I think I would love to leave you with this: trust yourself, trust your intuition. Ask people, hey, do you know anybody who works at X, Y, and Z that I can talk to? Just learn more about the company, right? You're not asking for an informational interview. You're not asking for anything they might be uncomfortable with. It's just an opportunity to get to know. And then the other thing is just advocating for your passion. It's a continuous process of growth. It is a journey, not a destination. I mean, I've done so many different things throughout my career, every single one of them building upon where I am today. Will I always be here? Probably not, because I love learning and I love challenge. So there may be a time that I outgrow this current role, but for now, I'm working with amazing people with a company that has a purpose that I align with. So look for those things. Don't hesitate to ask, network. It's all there for you. We're here for you. So
awesome. We have just about a minute or two left. So Libby and Marie, any last thoughts as well, or advice that you want to give out to our interns as we close today?
Yeah, I guess I'll just say, yeah, it's important to know what your strengths are, but it's also important to know where I think your areas of weakness are too, and to be able to talk about them in a humble way. That's definitely a question that I always ask, you know, interns and candidates, and tell me about a difficult work situation, you know, and how you overcame it. Because you know, challenges are where professionals they grow the most, you know, and it allows you know, me to understand how someone, you know, performs under pressure, and how their problem solving skills are, and how they can manage stress. So yeah, just know that all that stuff, whatever, you know, you've been through in your life, it's all valid. And yeah, I hope that people will reach out if they're interested in any questions about lady shuckers or oyster farming. Thanks.
Great.
I would just add to that and say, surround yourself, and Libby, I think you said this early on, but surround yourself with people who are different from you. Just have a wide network of colleagues and mentors, peers, just people who are different from yourself, because that makes you a better person. It gives you different perspective to be more successful in whatever your role is with that organization. And, you know, I feel like it kind of frees you up too from maybe what your day-to-day is, because you can get involved in other people's lives in so many different ways. So just, yeah, continue to expand yourself, and best wishes. Um, if you are looking for a job in the insurance financial services industry, please look up Unum. We would love to have you join us.
Great, thank you. Thank you so much to all three of you for sharing so much today. We so appreciate it. The comments and the questions that are coming in were great. Sorry we didn't get to every question. We'll have some panels that are more related to some of them, and I encourage you to reach out to our panelists. I think John dropped in some LinkedIn connections into the chat. So we welcome those connections, and I just want to thank our panelists again and thank all of our audience for the great engagement. And we appreciate you helping us kick off this summer with our interns. Thank you so much. All right. Have a great day. Thanks, everybody.